Contemplate the workings of the inner being. Your eyes are wide open, but are you really seeing? Let's talk about sex. Oh, we did that song already.
Get up, get up, get up, get up. Let's make love tonight. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. 'Cause you do it right. I want sexual healing.
I was waiting for it. I was going to come in.
Baby.
So we're talking about sex this
Hot
week.
just like an oven.
Exactly. Like a Dutch oven. My name is Cole.
My name is Ty.
This is Mentor in the Mirror podcast, where we are all about bringing more questions for you to ask yourself or things to consider, because there is no greater mentor than you. So these are just more things for you to consider. We're not the end all be all. We're not your guru. We're not your shaman. We're not your spiritual leader.
And we're not Batman.
No, I'm not Robin. Henry might be, though. Henry is actually the head of this whole operation, our 5-pound chihuahua.
Actually, Alfred.
Alfred?
Yeah.
Henry's our Alfred?
Yeah. He runs the whole show.
He's the one that makes sure all the tech works. That's and stuff.
Right.
Perfect.
He shows my outfit fits properly.
So we realized we really hadn't talked a whole lot about our sexual dynamics in our relationship, and it's something that we started getting far more questions about, probably because we have an awesome relationship and more people are like, let's talk about sex.
Baby.
Let's talk about
you and me.
So before we can really even get into some of the how we got to where we are, I think we have to start at the beginning. Did you ever see that on Wayne's World?
Yes, I did.
Okay, perfect. So that's what I was doing. In case you missed it. You know
Party
what? Even if you
on.
missed it, let's take it back. So back in 2010, I'm actually not going to go back that far. The short version of that story is we met in 2010.
At Caesar's Palace in Las
Caesar's
Vegas.
Palace in Vegas. We swapped information and stayed connected on MySpace and Facebook. And
Was MySpace still around then?
I mean, it was not really, but I definitely stalked you there.
Did you?
I did.
Oh.
Because we were, I mean, then it was a networking thing. You know, we played a show together at Caesar's Palace and went our separate ways. And from time to time we would talk, but it was only around music, touring,
And publishing.
publishing. Exactly. For those that don't know, Ta published a book called The Insomniac Works.
Luminous Dark Alleys.
We're going to
Insomniac Works.
republish because it's long since been sold out. So again, that's a story for another day.
And Cole wrote a book called Someone Save Me.
Which you can still get on Kindle, which if you're looking for the depth of my education 9 years ago or 8 years ago and my writing capabilities, you'll see it very clearly. You'll also hear the victim talk. You'll also hear poor, pitiful me and the narrative that I was in. It's fantastic. I highly recommend everyone go get Someone Save Me. Any fourth grader can read it. I assure you, as long as they're not also a grammar geek. And you can hear the difference in narrative, which is also why I never took it down, actually. Because it's like out there in the world to remind me of how far I've come. Anyway, so
I enjoyed it.
Look, that's great. I'm just saying I'm a very different person than the person that wrote that book.
Back to sex.
Back to sex. Back to doing it. So in 2013, I had just come out of a relationship and invited Ta over to a Cinco de Mayo party I was having as like a final party before I moved out of my apartment. And even then we didn't really talk then. I had bands playing. It was a party,
all
bro.
Of 8 minutes.
It's true.
And Kelly's shoe collection down in the basement.
Oh, yeah.
I spent more time with
Kelly.
Kelly's shoes than I did with you.
Yeah, fair. I think most people did. I was
Yeah.
running around being the host and stuff. I mean, we had a solid like 200 people that night. That was not a small party.
Yeah.
It was epic. So, you know, we kind of connected then, but again, not really. So fast forward a few months later when I called Ta, I actually had a dream about him. And in this dream, I got this like Ta, Utah, where I'm from.
Yeah.
You, in the dream, came to me and you said, there's something here we need to explore. And I'd never had a dream about somebody before. So that was very, not in that way. And so I hit you up and I sent you a Facebook message and I said, hey, let's get together and talk. I'm going to stay in New York and I'd love to maybe do a project together. I've always wanted to have like a really good MC work on some of my songs with me. So we got together, we talked, and it was sparks and magic.
and magic and sparks. And she kissed me on the corner of the mouth when I was leaving. And yeah, so there.
And showed you my burned belly.
Yeah, so she walks into this place. We eating it. For those of you who know Brooklyn, we had this place. What's the name? Havana Outpost, and on DeKalb Avenue. And she walks into Havana Outpost, and she's like, "Oh my goodness, I got this terrible sunburn." This is the first thing she says before she even says hello. "I have this terrible," and she lifts up her shirt.
Bro, it was really burnt.
And her belly was all chiseled out like she'd been working out 7 days a week.
I had.
Uh-huh. And she had this little beach ball thing piercing her navel. It was, man, listen. Oh my goodness. And
hey, that was legitimate.
And
that's when me and Ellie and Kelly and Casey went to the beach and we got burned.
And I'm like, how I'm supposed to sit here and just be on some business music when you doing stuff like that?
It was hurting.
It was
it
hurting.
It
was hurting me too. Shit. So anyway, so we started off with some sexual innuendos and
epic.
And
I mean, you were throwing me around, son. This wasn't just like, the innuendo. Sorry, I skipped straight ahead.
Wow, I mean, whoa. we getting into the story, and she's like, and then I was straddling him, and then we were getting thrown around the room, and then there was these juices just flying everywhere, and fruit. And then there was this guy with a pot in the pan banging in the closet. What? So we were at Havana Outpost, and we sat there, and we were supposed to talk about doing a song, and we talked for hours. And there was one point where I was laughing, and I kind of touched your leg, and I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, pardon me." And you were like, "No, it's okay."
Oh man, I even thinking about it. We might have to pause this podcast and go handle
pause it.
You know, and even then, it's not like we just jumped into something, actually, because we started texting and talking and all this stuff, but I was having so much fun with you. There was certainly the sexual energy element that was there. The truth is, though, you're hilarious. Like, you are the funniest person that I know. Actually, that's all a lie. I'm just using you for your body.
Please use me for my body. Someone, please.
Please. Everyone get in line. Me. Now taking applications to use Top or his body.
Use my body, please.
So when we did first start to get into that, into intimacy, into sexuality, shit was crazy.
Yeah. The first year that we were together, we had sex for 350 days straight. 350. I counted them.
Even aside from that, though,
straight.
It was bananas.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I mean, my legs were up on your shoulders. You were standing up. I mean, legs everywhere getting thrown. This shit was like a cheer routine.
In the kitchen,
but naked.
On the counter, on the floor, on the dresser, on the bed.
Yeah.
On the floor again, upside down.
Shit
standing up.
was bananas. B-A-N-A-N-A-S. So, and it was like that for quite a few years, that our sex was very expansive and consistent and all this stuff. And then shit started to get a little wonky like 3 years ago.
Yeah. Really wonky.
When I say wonky, I mean all of a sudden I started having all this trauma come up. So for those that aren't familiar, or you haven't heard us discuss it, or maybe you didn't know what we were talking about, The Body Stores Trauma. If you want a really great book for that, you can read The Body Keeps the Score, Waking the Tiger.
When the Body Says No.
When the Body Says No.
What Is Your Body Telling You by Steve Siskold.
Yeah. And I can, I'll put those names down in the show notes as well, because if you haven't read them, highly recommend that you do. Because maybe you have realized in relationships before that you start to be intimate, and a certain way they touch you, your body tightens up. So one of the signs I started to see that my body was being reactive to our intimacy, to our sexuality, was urinary tract infections. And something I've really come to realize is that if I'm not honoring myself, my body, what I want, and clearly communicating my boundaries, then I get a urinary tract infection like clockwork. And it's not something I ever considered before. So as deeper trauma started to come up, what I realized is the trauma that was coming up was not sexual trauma, actually. What was coming up was the fact that I had been in pain my entire life. between endometriosis and ovarian torsion, fibromyalgia, scoliosis in my back. There was a 40-degree curvature. I had arthritis in my knee, hypothyroidism, migraines. I had it all, not to mention all the broken bones. And so in a psychedelic journey that Ta and I had attended as participants, I had the realization that part of the reason I held on to pain the way that I did was because pain had become my best friend. Pain had become this blanket that let me know that I wasn't alone, that let me know that I could still feel, because the truth is, if I didn't feel pain, it was like I wouldn't feel anything. And if I didn't feel anything, am I even alive? What am I? Who am I? And there's more layers to it. But I had coupled pain and pleasure together through trauma.
And you coupled sex and pain together.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So when I had this really huge moment of saying goodbye to pain, it was like I threw the baby out with the bathwater. It threw out my sexuality too. And then it created this hyper vigilant protective mechanism in my body, because I had been conditioned, just because of conversations I'd heard, people that I knew, my own experiences, that good sex was when you, as a woman, you were like a workhorse and you could take a pounding, and you were tough and you could like take a deep dickin', as they say. And there was a big piece of that felt very there was almost like an honor to it. There was like I can take it, I'm really strong. And so what happened is, as I said goodbye to pain, then that reality I had created in sexuality dissolved and was no longer congruent to the person I had evolved into and was growing into. So all of a sudden it was like my sexual energy was gone. Not gone, but it was totally different. And that was terrifying.
Yeah, from my vantage point, the perspective was when you started to really feel safe with me,
mm-hmm.
your body allowed you to be in a space where you could actually explore what sexuality is
mm-hmm.
for yourself, not for how you had been programmed or taught or learned from your friends.
And boundaries, period. Physical boundaries.
And so when you started to feel safe, all of these things came up and you started to have jurisdiction over your own body, over
mm-hmm.
your own sexuality. So it was like this whole, you didn't know there was this new realm of exploration that you didn't know how to explore. So I
never had.
No,
like my first sexual experiences were quite traumatic, so I didn't even have a framework for that. Safety in general, I didn't know what safety was. My safety was removed at a very, very, very young age.
I mean, there were times when we first got together, like the first couple of months or so, you would be like, fuck me, and you would kind of then phase out. Like you would completely, almost looked like you dissociated, and I would stop and I'd be like, are you all right? And it would take you a couple of seconds and you would phase back in, and then you were like, I'm good. And then,
but I know in retrospect, I would phase back in to appease the person, to let them know I was still there. But there was a level of discomfort and pain that if I stayed in my body, it's like I couldn't take it. And from having so many broken bones and injuries and being kicked in the face by a horse and all this stuff, I learned how to disassociate from my physical self, because pain was so significant.
Significant to me too, because things kind of disappeared. Things went out the window and caused me to question myself. And, am I sexy? Do you think I'm sexy? Do you want to be with me anymore? What's going on? And then all of my constructs around marriage and stuff started to come up. All my old shit around marriage and what marriage is and what I classified marriage as, what I was taught marriage is in school, in the Catholic Church. All of these different things started to come up. And I was like, well, am I being a good husband? Am I, do I leave? Do I stay?
Well, and it had been your experience in past relationships.
Every past relationship I had been in that was longer than a week. I was with somebody, and as soon as they got settled, they changed and they scaled back on sex. So this was here it is again. Wow, I've got myself into this space where I really love somebody, want to be with them, and now they remove sex from me because they have what they want. And this was the story that was coming up. And I didn't believe the story. I know that wasn't the case, and my body was like, run, head for the hills. And so it's I started to be hyper vigilant about stuff too. And it started to really scare me. So now here it is, we're in this place. Our sex life is dramatically different. It's not exciting the way it was. It's not all over the place. It's not adventurous. None of this stuff. It's all like everything shifted.
Well, and it's a landmine, really, because if we didn't approach it in the right way, you would feel me shift. So it's not even like I could hide it or try to work through it. You're so perceptive and receptive to the changes in my body that I couldn't even work through it because you would recognize it before I did that it was even happening.
Mm-hmm. And then it's like, hey, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. And then things kind of get soft and
dried up.
And then it's this big emotional situation with crying and
yeah, man, it was scary. It was scary to feel like, one, who am I? Two, like, feeling like a disappointment because here I am with this incredible partner. I have everything I want and so much more than even more than I wanted and everything I ever dreamed of. Did you say that?
You said it to all the guys.
So, and that was scary to me because, Ta, I love you with a fervor and a depth that I can't even put into words. And honestly, it was breaking my heart that you weren't fulfilled, and it's like, and I wanted it so bad that then it would like get me in my head more. And it was like, what is wrong with me? And it went back to that self-shaming and being hard on myself for, again, not being enough, and for you being too much, like we really, those two polarities, once they get created,
that was my thing, man. You're always too much. You're too loud.
And I'm always not enough. You're energetic.
You want too much. It's just always too much. So I would back away and just wait.
And then I'd feel that I'm not enough. And so it was just,
I mean, and then we went through a series of years where I was waiting, it was just like, okay, I'll wait. What do you need? Well, I need this and I need these clothes. I need to have a place to settle. I need to have a closet to put my stuff in. I need to have these sexy clothes to make me feel sexy, these underwear, all of these different stipulations that never seemed to really hit the marker. I was
guessing, man. I was like throwing pasta at the wall to see what would stick because I could not find any grounding under me.
Yeah, neither could I. And
I couldn't find anything under me. Or on top of me,
or in you,
behind me.
Right. So it was like
adjacent to me.
So it was this situation, and so I had been like, hey, how you feeling? And let me touch you here. Let's touch me here. Where, what do you feel like this? Nope. All right, cool. I'll wait. And it was just always cool. I'll wait. All right, cool. I'll wait. All right, no, cool. On your time. And then it became sex on your clock, and it was always on Cole's clock. I'll wait until Cole's ready. And it was just like, and then at the drop of the hat, whenever you were ready, it was like, okay, now I'm ready for something. And then like, well, no matter what I'm, but there was clients. There was one period where you were like, well, you always have clients between these hours and these hours, and these are the hours that I'm horny. So I moved all my clients, and then things shifted again. And it was just, there was always these stipulations that I was bending and moving for, and it just didn't seem to do the trick. And so I started getting into my head about maybe there's something wrong with me. And
or that this isn't where I really want it to be.
This is too well.
I mean, you said it to me countless times.
That you didn't want to be.
Right? Yeah, that you would ask me, maybe this isn't where your heart is anymore, and you adore me as a person, but as far as like a partner or in a sexual capacity, maybe it's not it.
Yeah, I was like maybe
you like chicks, man.
Yeah, maybe yeah. So
I do like chicks. Chicks are.
That was a big thing, man. I was until recently I was like, hey, maybe you like women, and I got shut down off of that. Listen, I don't like you telling me that it's not good. So
I don't want to be placed in a box, bro.
I got you.
I like who I like, and it doesn't make me gay or straight or heterosexual or homosexual.
I don't buy into all those titles, man.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was bringing it to your attention. Like, bruh, who doesn't like women? Let's be honest.
Yeah, about that. So this is how things went for a while, and it was just all this guesswork and waiting, and it was really frustrating. And we had plenty of conversations around it, and me it came to a point where I was like, do you think I came and I asked you, I was like, do you think I'm sexually satisfied? And you were like, no.
No. Oh, I knew it.
And I was like, okay. And then the guilt sets in, right? Like, oh my God, I'm not sexually satisfied. So what is she going to be thinking about herself? And all of this shit started popping up. And, we have an amazing, amazing relationship. And
that never changed as far as our relationship.
It's never changed, but we've also realized how we coupled our sexuality with our relationship. And it's not the same thing. And there's a lot of programming in society. And, you may want to take a second to really let this sink in. There's a lot of programming in society around marriage, around religion, around government and all this stuff, that the one person around the one person that you're married to or that you decide to partner with has to be the person to sexually fulfill you, if they like it or not.
I want to pause you for a second, and I want to reiterate that, because I think what you just said could be repeated. That now I just forgot exactly how you said it. Could you say it one more time, slow, so this people can really take this in?
There's a lot around society as far as religions, government, social interactions, communities, family structures, around marriage being the only place that a person is in a relationship with, that the only place that they can be sexually fulfilled. And if one of the people is not sexually fulfilled, they're just out of luck, because the marriage has jurisdiction over their sexual being their body as a sexual being. And this is a construct. These are constructs that are controlling our sexuality and how our relationships are governed.
And our freedom.
And our freedom. And so this is our relationship, right? We make this relationship.
We determine what it looks like.
The relationship does not determine what it looks like. We do.
Correct.
The relationship is a structure that we create. It is not a structure that was created for us and by other people's, and to have so that society can have jurisdiction over how we govern our bodies and our lives. This is our construct. We create this. So if we want to have sex with a million other people, if we're fulfilled, fine. Look, if this is our relationship. Mm-hmm. And so for me to be fulfilled as an individual, and for you to be fulfilled as an individual, is of the utmost importance to me. I believe it's the same way with you. Mm-hmm. That's how you've always shown up with me. And so for us to be able to have an open discussion and be honest about our sexuality, our individual sexualities, and if they come together, fine. If they don't, that's fine too. But that doesn't mean that we have to be apart, or that we need to be divorced, or whatever the fuck society says. Two people shouldn't be together if they're not in the same sexual space. That to me is incongruent with how I want to live my life. I could live my life with one of my homeboys if that was the best person in the world that I wanted to live with and spend my life. And meanwhile, I'm having sex with everybody else in the world. That's my choice. You know what I mean? And so, I live with the greatest friend I've ever had in my life. The funniest person I've ever been with. I laugh until I can't breathe every single day. I love laying with you in the bed and snuggling with you and watching movies and all of this stuff. If our sex is not on the same page, it's not on the same page. And it goes the same for you. You have things that you love to explore, and I'm just not into it. It's the same thing like eating at a restaurant.
Yeah, it's life in general.
It's life in its totality. And if we're going to talk about, being in this space where we are letting our bodies relax, and we're getting our bodies to be able to heal and not be in a hypervigilant space of sympathetic fight or flight activation all the time, for us to be able to accept each other in the same space is really, really important. And that includes our sexuality. Yeah. Our sexuality is not something that you break off and put to the side because society or a religion or a government or a community or your friends, whatever, say you're supposed to perform this way. So you break your sex off of your being and you put it to the side, and it's reserved for usage only as somebody else tells you it's to be used. Fuck that. That for me, that just is not, that's not how it's going down for me. Well,
it comes down to a not enough or too much. There's rarely people where both are on the same page, right? Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because even with all the couples we've worked with, there's one person that's far more sexual than the other. And It doesn't mean it's always been that way, right? But it feels like there's always one person that phases in and out, like they're on an energetic wave of it. And the other person has been consistently more sexual, just and usually since childhood. Mm-hmm. Like everyone that I know that we've worked with that does have a more just a more expansive sex life or desire for more sex usually started pretty young.
Yeah.
And that's been pretty consistent their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a fascinating thing because it both end up carrying shame of either being too much or not being enough.
Right.
But either way, it's something is wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful for you. Like, I am so grateful for the depth that I've been able to grow because of you. And I love our sex. Like, I love it. I love connecting with you. I love being in that space with you. And even more than the love that I have for that is my love for how you support me being fully expressed, every part of me.
Every part.
The scary parts, the shameful parts, or the ones that I perceive as shameful, the trauma parts, the angry parts. And we've had to do a boundary setting. You know, like, there's a difference in accepting all of the things that someone is and setting boundaries and saying, look, I support all that you are, and here's my line within that for me, because I have to honor myself. Yeah. And in the creation of our relationship, we talk about every possibility, every scenario. We talk about everything that we can. Doesn't mean we're always capable of being able to see all the parts or, you know, navigate all the parts simultaneously. However, our communication is stellar. It is freaking stellar.
I love our communication, and even when it's really uncomfortable, you know, I've moved into a space where I'm able to articulate just about anything. And when there's a physiological block, I let it be known that I'm having a hard time saying something or whatever, so that I can get into a comfortable space, even if I have to bring somebody else in so that I can say it. It's really important for me to do that. And you know, it was funny that, you know, I just had a thing pop up on Facebook from 4 years ago saying how grateful I am for you in my life, because I'm able to articulate myself vulnerably. And that's not something that a lot of men from my vantage point have been able to do, have been trained to do, is to be able to be open and honest and vulnerable and feel safe with it. Mm-hmm. And I did not feel safe before this relationship to articulate myself. And this is one of the safest places I've ever had in my life. And, you know, just like, you know, on the last podcast I was saying, you know, I had some shit come up a couple of weeks ago around me being able to admit something to you, or me being able to articulate something to you, because I was afraid that it would drive you away. And that's old shit. And we got through it. You know,
but the feelings are real.
I asked for help. The feelings are very real. I asked for help. I came out and asked you for help. I was like, look, I need some fucking help. And we got it. And I got to articulate what I was saying. You got to show me that I was safe, you know, and I can't express in words how important that is for me, to allow me to rest, to allow me to sleep. You are the reason for me being able to be honest enough to go to express my truths, so that I could actually go to sleep after 30 years of insomnia, 30 years of insomnia. And so to be able to live in my truth, and that being my sexuality, is very important. And that's the thing that's been coming up for me as of late with this whole thing, is my sexuality. And, you know, I think it was 2 months ago I came to you and I said, hey, you know, I had a realization. And speaking of Bessel van DerKolk's book, right? Mm-hmm. When the body keeps the score, there's a quote on our window in the back, and it says, as long as you keep secrets and suppress information, you are fundamentally at war with yourself. The critical thing is to allow yourself to know what you know. That requires an incredible amount of courage. And I looked at that and I was like, well, what am I not, you know, what am I not being honest about? What am I not allowing myself to know? And I was like, man, you know, I've given Cole the keys to my sexuality, and I've made her the guardian, the custodian of my sex life.
Which then I could feel that it was my responsibility. And
I had made you this custodian of my sexual pleasure, and it was like, you know, I'll wait, and 3 years go by, and I'm still waiting. And I had come to you, and at that time I asked you, you know, do you think I'm fulfilled? And you were like, no. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll wait anyway. And I sat here and I waited, and so I said, look, Cole, you know, I had this opening with myself, and I want to take the keys back to my sexuality, and because my sexuality and my sexual fulfillment is my responsibility. And if you're not on board with it, then are you really on my team? And
well, again,
you were like,
it means one person has precedence, because then it's my needs come before yours. And if I say no, then your needs are a moot point. Like they're a moot point. They don't.
Yeah. It takes two to tango, and
for sure.
And so for me to sit here and talk about freedom, and then to not be free in my sexuality, and to not be the governor of my own sexual existence, my own sexual body, is an issue for me. It's when I'm sitting here thinking about sex, and you're not interested in it, or you're not in a space for it, or whatever, and I'm waiting years for myself to be fulfilled. What is that doing to my body when I look at you, and when I talk to you, and when I'm just not being honest with myself?
Well, and it was creating resistance, because after being rejected, so often, and that created physiological habits within your body that if I wasn't all in, then it would just pull away completely.
No. Yeah, my body's like, and I'm like, my body's like, no. And there's no chance. And and it's just not the type of dynamic. And so as I said that, you told me, man, thank you, because you cried, and you were like, wow, this relieves so much pressure. And I didn't even realize how much pressure that had been putting on you.
I didn't either.
Because I had made you this sole guardian of my sexuality. And so even just saying that and exploring the idea of me having my own sexual control over my body, and who I decide that my sexuality is going to be carried out with, and what I decide to do was a powerful thing for both of us, I believe.
Yeah.
And it opened you up to exploring your options of your type of sexuality,
really,
and what you want to connect with.
Just body exploration.
And so I think this has been a very huge breakthrough for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
in our lives, period. And I can't wait to see how things expand with the creation of our business, the expansion for our clients, because we've helped some people do some real serious shit as far as relationships go. And going this far for ourselves to be able to help people navigate through this space, is a whole other ball game.
There's a big difference between sex positive and breaking down the walls of the compartmentalization of the self.
Yeah,
because we have been broken into parts, and we have adhered to treating and healing specific parts.
Right.
And this freedom shit is not freedom from everything. It's the freedom to access and to know that you have everything that you need for everything that you want to experience.
Right.
To me, that's really what freedom is. That's what the condor energy is about in the premise of all of our work. That snake, puma, condor.
Right.
Snake is that transformational work. Puma is that vigilance, that leadership, that focus, that drive, that agility. The condor is the flexibility. Condor is soaring at higher heights with grand perspective, but it's less effort.
Yeah, and
it's still effort to take off, but it's not a constant hunt.
Right, and you know how to change with the winds, and when the storm's coming, you know how to move around that, and you don't lean into the storm, you lean away from the storm, and you know how to fly over the storm. And this is where our evolution goes with our sexuality, and this is something that I am quite in the know, that I have compartmentalized my sexual self prior to this situation.
Yeah.
And it's like we have body, we have mind, we have spirit, right? We have our social interactions, and we as human beings, we tend to break these things apart so that we can treat them individually but not bring them all together. And that sexual part is part of all of those things. That's that's the highest creative energy we have. Shit, when we have sex with other human beings, that male and female, we create other human beings.
Yeah.
That is the most powerful energy in the world. And not that you have to have sex with opposite sex people, but that energy,
that is a possibility.
But the energy of sex is the energy of creativity. And to be able to be creative with your sexuality the way you choose to, the way you want to, with your body, with who you want to, from a mutual perspective.
Of course.
This is not about clubbing somebody over the head or raping somebody or manipulation into sex against somebody's will so that you can get something. This is about
power play.
This is about mutuality. And I know from the people that we know that have had kids out of a mutual sexual situation, the magic that they've created with these situations is
the difference
amazing.
in the children is exponential.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the amount of trauma that these children have is is I can't say that it's less, but it's different. The
It's
traumas
different.
that they have are different, and they're usually not as parental based, and they're usually not sexually driven.
It's also really rare that we meet a couple, two people, where both parties were excited about the pregnancy, because usually either it was not planned by any party or one person wanted it more than the other, and guilt drove one person to get on board with it because they should, or because they felt like the other person deserved to be a parent.
And so these dynamics that are developed probably before these people were born from other people, and then before those people, and before those people are performing in ways they don't even know why they're performing these ways. And a lot of our sexuality is performed, I can't say not us, but a lot of sexuality on our planet is performed in ways that have been governed by people before the person who's actually having the sex. Oh, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to have sex out of wedlock. You're not supposed to have, with a different race or a different religion, or all of these rules around your sex. It's like me having rules over what you eat, or what you breathe, or where you live. All of these rules that we've had placed upon us.
Everything. But there is still this huge judgment around sex, and it doesn't matter. Someone could do work in every other area, and then when it comes to their relationships, there is such extreme expectation, and people are like, well, that's what you do when you're married, or that's what you do in a family, or that's what you do in this religion, or societal conditioning, culture, structure.
What is the one way to control population? You control their sex, man. You control their sex. You control a population by controlling their sex, how they can replicate, who they can replicate with, what the bedroom regulations are in their situation, who they can have sex with. This is how you control population, and this is how you keep population in particular races. This is how you keep population in particular religions. This is how you keep population in particular nationalities, gender, all of these different things. You keep populations based on how you control their sexuality. So why not plug it into the religion? Why not plug it into your government? Why not plug it into all these things? Because you are being controlled. And I'm not saying that all of the control mechanisms are functional or dysfunctional. They all function to a point for something. Why are we doing it? And are we asking this question in the mirror? Who's controlling my sexuality? Is it God? Is it the people that told me what God is
and
doing?
Even is it a past trauma? Because there is that element too of that work.
Is it a past trauma? Is it my parents? Is it my family? Is it my country? Is it my religion? What is it that's controlling my sexuality? Is it me? Am I having the sex that I want to have? Am I having the sexual interaction that I want to have? Am I in a relationship with somebody that I love, but they're not on my speed as far as sex is? Do they not like kinky stuff, or do they not like calm stuff? Do they not like what I like?
Even the idea that some things are kinky versus preference. Like the thing is, like, even the societal conditioning of, oh, that goes in the sex worker category, or the kink category, or the...
I was talking about just kinky stuff.
No, but that is what I'm talking about. The idea that something is kinky can be, to one person, kinky can mean, doing it in a car in a crowded parking lot, while another kinky person, it's, fruit that you're dragging around their body.
Right, but who is the person that says, that has jurisdiction over what you like? Is it you or the other person? And is the person that you're with, are they on board with it?
And are you being honest about it?
And are you being honest about it? And are you being allowed to be honest about it? Are you in a relationship situation where you have been allowed to be honest? And if somebody's asking for honesty and then they don't allow you to be honest,
another conversation.
Is that functional or dysfunctional?
Yep.
And we can go down the rabbit hole with this. We can talk about this shit for hours, weeks, days, months, and
Well, that's
years.
why we're doing it all week, because this is a big topic. It's something we haven't dove into, and quite honestly, some of the other conversations going on, I'm tired over right now. So this is a nice reprieve and break, because hey, if we're all held up in our homes right now, and you're not doing it, want to be doing it with somebody else, this might be some considerations to dive deeper into. Like your expectations of relationships for yourself. Who told you that? Who told you what this represents? And with your partner, have you even asked them?
Or your partners.
Yes. But most people are like, well, I don't want to know.
Well, then can you really complain about shit that you don't want to know about?
Well, and can you also then say you know a person?
Yeah.
And not to say that the past is who they are, but if you have put limiters on a partner, on a friend for that matter, that says, well, I don't want to know about that stuff. Don't tell me about that. You're saying there's a part of you that I can't handle, won't handle. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. This is strictly an awareness thing.
And that's a shame device.
Yes.
It all boils down to shame. I mean, we're finding more and more that all of the things that are keeping people separated are shame devices.
Yeah.
That are covered up by other shame devices, that are covered up by other things, niceties and all of this stuff. We can get into shame. We can talk all about it. You know, you can come to one of our retreats.
Yeah. Well, our next intensive will be in August.
Yep.
And if you go to, I think, DerKolk.com, you can put in an application if you want to attend. And there's also, if you are wanting to get deeper into the conversations happening societally and you resonate with us, and you're looking for some perspectives outside of mainstream narratives and, you know, from people that have been shadow banned and blocked. And I'm not talking about the going from one extreme to the other of conspiracy, but people that are really dancing in that. We can't go to either extreme in any situation, not in sex, not in money, not in medicine, not in vaccines. You know, it's like anytime you flip the pendulum to one side or the other, it's going to swing back, and it's going to be painful and destructive and all sorts of things. So we're really about having conversation. And so if you want to get into our inner circle, if you text the word optimize with a Z to 22999, we are going to start doing Zoom meetings with some of the experts and people that we know in varying fields to start elevating your current perceptual lens and your experience, because we need more people now than ever before to be liberated within themselves, so that translates in the home, so that translates in your neighborhood, in your city, in your county, in your state, and in this country. So if you're interested in that narrative, or in that exploration, text optimize to 22999 and get in front of that mirror. Who told you what sexuality is? Who told you what it should look like? Who it should be with? How often it should be? Have you sat down with yourself and identified, are you happy? Mm-hmm. Are you satisfied? Even forget the happy part. Are you getting to have sex the way you want to have sex, with who you want to have sex with? And are you being radically honest with yourself in what's driving it, where that started? Is there anything dysregulated that needs support, that needs resolve, that needs love? Hit us up on Instagram. We know amazing practitioners of all kinds. We can refer you. We can send you a hug. If you're in Austin, we'll give you a hug, because we are rebel huggers, man.
Rebel hugging.
We should be the rogue huggers.
Hugging on rebel. Yeah.
Robble.
You know what we should do? We should just do a Facebook Live and just be hugging.
That's the new sensuality. Oh, my tricep is touching your tricep. Well, that would be like a backwards hug. I was going to say my tricep's touching your tricep, but then I realized that wouldn't really...
Yeah, feel my tricep. Hey, man, if that's what you're into.
Fair.
If that's what you're into, man. Oh, we could do one of those cams, a hug cam.
A hug cam,
yeah,
nice.
You just pay like $22.99 a minute to watch us hug. Sort of naked.
Well, and there it is, folks. So we're going to continue this conversation this week. Thank you so much for listening. Hit us up on Instagram. What about sex do you want to talk about, hear about? Nothing's off the table. We're not scared. We'll talk about it. We'll bring it up. If you loved this episode, hop on over to iTunes. Leave us a review. Let us know your biggest takeaway or what you appreciate about the way we communicate, what we're saying, whatever. Those ratings mean a lot to us. We read them all and we deeply appreciate it. So until next time, don't forget to rate,
review, subscribe, share with a friend.
We love you. And if this whole world was getting good sex the way that they wanted to for each individual, it would be a different world.
Word up. My name is Ta.
My name is Cole. We are Ta Cole. This is Mentor in the Mirror podcast.
Be free.